Yo, what's good, Knicks Nation? Welcome back to another game of the week preview. We just finished playing the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm doing this recording right before we play. So hopefully the Knicks win, man. I know it's against Luka and LeBron, but you'll see me in post game anyway talking about all that. But I got a phenomenal guest with me today who covers the LA Clippers and the league at large. He's been doing the damn thing for the Athletic for a minute now. I got Wall Murray with me on the other side, so make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. All right, man. Wall, how you doing today, man? I know we were just talking a little bit behind the scenes. You've been in 7 different arenas. You've been traveling the nation already, just doing the damn thing, covering the league, covering the Clippers. How you feeling today, bro?
I mean, I feel good. I just came from the gym. I deserve a damn medal for that. And
Let's go.
it's raining out here in LA. So once again, Tony lied. I'm blessed, man. I feel good to be here, and thanks for having me back on.
Of course, man. Always love having you on. Always love talking NBA and Clippers with you. You do such a great job when it comes to covering the league. I do have some questions for you, and I'm going to start off with what do you think about the New York Knicks, man? What's been your thoughts on them this season after all the moves they've made in the past offseason or within, over a year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm never one to overhype the Knicks. And the funniest thing about doing power rankings for the first time in my career this year is how many people assume I'm a anything close to a Knicks sympathizer.
Mm.
Um, I generally have them ranked pretty high, this season. I mean, I don't have all of my season rankings in front of me because it's the middle of the week, and I think the best way to do power rankings is to not think about it until I have to do them. My editors are gonna be like, "Dog, come on, man." It's like, nah. We in the fourth quarter of the season. I can let them be. I can let them know. We doing this full disclosure. We are doing this on a Thursday. I do not like looking at that thing until Saturday at the very earliest. If you got
Mm.
games left in my window, I'm not trying to think about, oh, where are they going to be ranked at? No. I try and keep that a 48-hour project. That being said, um, the Knicks were a team that I saw the moves they made. Obviously, they made two big moves, very different parts of the calendar. We all saw the Mikal Bridges trade a mile away. They were telling that dude blink twice if you need to be rescued from across the bridge. Like, hella disrespectful. And of course, they wind up getting him. And then yeah, I guess that was overquoted for Villanova dudes on the team, so they tucked him and Julius Randle, who they relying all summer about, having a place in their plans for a guy in Carlton Towns who, in the short term, it was like, duh, you need a center. But in the long term, you know, it was a matter of enhancing their ceiling. Like you were eventually going to get Mitchell Robinson back, so you're going to have options up front when it mattered the most, which is the postseason. We're getting to the spring soon. I'm a big fan of Karl Anthony Towns. I'm a fan of Mikal Bridges, but I always wondered how they were going to make all those pieces work. And I wondered about the depth. And the bench has been, I think a lot of Knicks fans have been sensitive about the minutes, that these guys are playing. I think guys might be wearing down a little bit. I think the defense has been underwhelming. I look at them as a very good team, but not one that can reasonably challenge the real contenders. So they've got time to work on things. I think Mitchell Robinson should be considered like their big midseason acquisition. He's a guy who
For
they
sure.
formed an identity without him, and now he gets an opportunity to give them something that they didn't have for the majority of the season. But I do think the Knicks ceiling is limited based on what we've seen this year, and also just Tom Thibodeau is their head coach. Like no disrespect to
Mm.
Tibbs. I really like Tibbs. I'm excited to see him. The Knicks are one of the last teams I have not seen in the entire NBA this season. They might be the absolute last. I might have seen every team at this point but the Knicks.
Mm.
But you know, the last time that Tibbs took a team to the conference finals, Derek was 2011, and Derrick Rose was the MVP. And even then, they were upset by a lower seed. The Tibbs is not taking a team to a deep playoff run in 14 years. The league was a very different place last time he did. So I there's nothing that the Knicks have done this year on paper or on the floor to make me think that they're going to break through to the conference finals this year.
Woo! Wall's coming in with the heat today. And let me tell you something. You are, you know, having to do post games and listen to the fans, man, and how they feel about this team on a night to night basis. I mean, you're hitting the points that part of the fan base wants to hear. We know that this team has been underwhelming when they compete against the Celtics, the Thunder, the Cavaliers. We know that there's frustration in the fan base among some because you go all in for all these pieces, that being Mikal Bridges, Karl Anthony Towns, you dwindle your bench, but still you say, hey, you talked about you've increased the ceiling, so we should be able to compete with those teams, especially even though the Knicks have not outright said it, we know that they want to compete with Boston. But yet when you go against those three teams and you get waxed every single time, you're like, okay, so we're in tier two. We're not even in tier one. And it's like it's such a wide gap in order to compete with them. And then the second part of that is Tom Thibodeau that some of the fan base has a problem with because they're like, is he capable of maximizing the talent on this team? And so, we'll see. I think he's going to get another year to prove it and try to get to the Eastern Conference Finals with this roster. It has to get to the ECF. Look, at the beginning of the season, I expected ECF for this team just because if you go in on getting those type of players, you should be close enough, especially if you believe that, or even after last season, how your roster was decimated by the time it got to Game 7 against the Indiana Pacers. And if you were able to do that with not having Julius, losing Mitch in the postseason, not having OG for part of the regular season after you traded for him, the expectation should be, all right, if we make these trades, we get these guys back, we should be able to compete at that level. And we're good against everybody else except for those top three teams. And so that's certainly the difficulty in doing that. And at the beginning of the season, you wrote a phenomenal article talking about the teams that have won championships I think over the last like 20 years, I want to say. And you talked about how you need like a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. And your expectations on the Knicks then, like it stays true today, especially what you're saying is that the defense just isn't there. And so where's the defense if you're looking to compete for a championship? So is that also what you're going off of too, based on that type of research?
Man, that you bringing me back to December, which is dope. Like that's when that was an article. Shout out to my editors because that was not something I was going to write, but uh, that's what's cool about the Athletic. We have so many talented people. Some of them write, some of them edit, some of them, they're with other verticals, and we're capable of coming up with compelling ideas and putting people like me in a position to make it happen. And so, shout out to you for even bringing that back. Like I haven't thought about that piece in a minute. And I mean, there are some teams that obviously are in a better spot than December. And I mean, December is a really great time to really analyze stuff
Hmm.
because the first quarter of the season is over and teams don't make moves, between week one and mid-December. Now we have the NBA Cup to like actually make it feel like something significant is happening. Like, the competitiveness in the NBA games the last two seasons has been really cool to see.
Hmm.
It makes you kind of validate all the things you talk about in the offseason. We go months without NBA basketball, but we're talking about NBA basketball because of the moves that teams have made and the fact that no one's lost yet. So, you know what I'm saying? So, like, you probably feeling good if you talking about off-season hoop. Like, you must really want to talk about some ball, right? And so, like, there's not a lot of movement. You're not, the way you establish yourself, it's like, okay, cool. That's probably the team that you have. And the Knicks, more or less, I feel like they've been pretty stable. Like the Knicks haven't gone on crazy ups and downs, these crazy swings. They kind of established who they were early on. And most of that is good. The defense, though, I truly believe that teams have to be able, like, that's a true mark of a team. I feel like individuals score the basketball. I feel like teams stop offenses. And you have to, and the thing about defense is malleable. See, offense is this is our identity. We're going to do this. This is who we're playing through consistent basketball. But defense is can you guard? What do you hear all the time, Alex? Can you guard multiple positions? Can
Hmm.
you switch things up? Can you give
Right.
guys the stars that you trying to stop different looks so that they don't get a heavy diet of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the best teams to me are the ones that are able to adapt to any kind of attack and to do it consistently, whether they're facing good teams or not. And the Knicks have not figured that part out. I think everyone thought, hey, they get Mikal Bridges, you already have OG, you have Josh, and you're thinking, and at the time, they had Dante, right? And you're thinking they're going to be so good defensively. They're going to guard wings. They're going to guard all everyone's thinking of Boston because when you win a championship, everyone is either trying to stop you or copy you. Okay.
Exactly.
And the Knicks were in both categories. Honestly, the worst thing the Knicks had is they got upset by the Pacers in a series that they had multiple opportunities to put away before injuries started to stack up, right? You're up 2-0. You're up 3-2. Like they had multiple opportunities to shut that thing down. They had home court in game 7. They didn't get it done. They really needed to see Boston so that they could improve their team and improve what they needed to do from a play style standpoint. You see what's happening this year. Boston and Cleveland, what do they do well? They shoot threes.
Mm-hmm.
They shoot threes. Now they shoot threes different ways now. Okay. Boston just decides everyone on the court's going to shoot threes. And I don't even think Boston's that accurate shooting threes, but they're just like, all of us are going to shoot them, just so you know. And then you have Cleveland. Not all those you shoot the three, but if they're shooting the three, you probably got burnt somewhere because when they shoot it, they're one of the most accurate, if not the most accurate three-point shooting team in basketball. Either one of those things is the Knicks' kryptonite, and that's been the biggest issue. It's not the personnel; it's the fact that whatever the heck Tibbs is doing, they're being made to look like a Stone Age defense because they can't defend that potent shot, and that's their biggest problem. And if we're going to talk about having to be better defensively, that's what they need to be better at. They need to be better at defending threes.
You're telling me, and honestly, I got a lot of pushback from fans in game one when I saw the Celtics just light it up. I was like, we know that Brunson and Cat are like your weakest defenders out there, right? And knowing what Tibbs likes to run, which is drop coverage and really thinks about protecting the paint. As soon as I saw Celtics just put up record threes against us, I was like, oh, this is going to be our weakness this entire season. Sure enough, we're dead last, when it comes to defending the accuracy of 3-point shooting. And so it's been it's been bothersome. That's like probably the most aggravating thing when you're watching the Knicks play on a night to night basis. And when I just look at the defense, it's like, when you get Karl Anthony Towns, we know that that's not his strong suit playing defense. We knew that going in here. And so I'm just wondering with Tibbs' recent statement saying, "Oh, we were playing without our starting center and Mitchell Robinson." I was like, "Hold on one second. There's got to be some cap there because the whole point, as you mentioned, we're trying to copy Boston and we're trying to stop Boston. Boston has a 5-out offense. Our whole thing was let's get 5-out. Mitchell Robinson does not scream 5-out at all in the slightest. And so it's like that's not true. He was not going to start the season. You wanted Cat at the 5. We've now done 3/4 of the season seeing Cat at the 5, and it's like, oh, this just isn't our style. It's like, yes, this is not our style. We established that, and this is nothing against Cat, and that's just who he is. That's why he got
Well,
moved to the 4
it's
in
funny,
Minnesota.
Alex. What's funny is the Knicks' offense has been incredible. You
It's
know what
been
I mean?
phenomenal.
Like
Even when they're not moving, it's still been incredible.
and I feel like they've been even better than Boston in that regard. They did a good job there. It's just what people don't talk about with the Celtics, Alex, is how good defensively they are.
Hmm.
And like that's where people miss the plot. Everyone wants to talk about threes. Everyone wants to talk about offense. But people don't talk about defense. They don't talk about defending threes. And they don't talk about the margin of threes. It's not just that, oh, they shoot more threes than us, as if that's you know, an up and down static thing.
Hmm.
They're probably taking more threes than you, any way you look at it, getting more opportunities, period, because they don't turn the ball over. They have good rebounders. They are decent in the possession battle. Not to say that the Knicks are terrible at it, but like the Knicks did not approximate Boston's defense and Boston's ability to get stops consistently.
Hmm.
And that's why that team is champions. And that's probably why the Knicks are pretenders.
And I'll say this, and like as much as it hurts me to hear that, like anything can happen, injuries can happen, and I'm gonna live by that till like anything could happen in the postseason. Although like from what we've seen during the regular season, it's hard to really like buy into that. But the last thing I'll say to your point, even though when you talk about defending, it's the other thing is Boston has all these capable playmakers, like 1 through 4, even five,
Right.
if you want to include some KP at times. They can all create for themselves or for each other. When I look at the Knicks, it's just Jalen Brunson. And when we brought in Bridges, we expected him to elevate his game from what he was doing out in Brooklyn for us. He hasn't been consistent in doing that. You can't expect that from OG. Cat's not a guy that can go create it for himself like that. He has to be set up to do so for most of the time. And then Josh Hart, he's our energy guy, and he's great out in transition, great at getting downhill, but he's limited in the aspect of like, all right, here's Josh, you go do your damn thing, and we don't have anybody on the bench that can do that. And so, that's stuff that we miss when you trade guys like Emmanuel quickly, even RJ who's limited, or even if you get rid of Julius Randle. And so the team is vastly different from a playmaking standpoint. And I feel like between the defense and the playmaking, that's what needs to be addressed this offseason to take the Knicks back to level. Yeah, we could talk about the bench as like, as like the superficial thing, like that definitely does need to be addressed. But the other two categories that we're talking about right now, defense and playmaking, definitely need to be addressed as well if you want to compete with Boston. But enough about the Knicks, man. We got to go to the team that you love to cover, man. We got to talk about the LA Clippers. But hold on one second. Let me just reset real quick. Shout out to Knicks Nation. Shout out to the franchise channel members. Salute to everyone tuning in for another game of the week preview. With me on the other side is my guy Law Murray. He covers the LA Clippers and the league at large for the Athletic. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. So, well, let's talk about these Clippers now, man. Let's talk about your Clippers. How are you feeling about this team, man? This team was riding hot at the beginning of the season, and now they're in a lull. What's the 411?
Well, I'll just say this. The Clippers have had the kind of season that just makes you really seasick when it comes to expectations and keeping those expectations in mind throughout the course of a year. If you undersold them, then like any hater, you've been waiting a while. You know what I mean? Like you probably are happy right now. It's like, see, I knew they weren't going to be anything. But like you had to wait a while if you had low expectations, and most people did. And I think the players they saw that. The head coach saw that. They even the front office, but the front office is always going to say, "Yeah, we're trying to win a championship." Like they don't really move off of that, but um, they've overachieved most of the season, but they've done so in a way that probably isn't that exciting, and probably makes you that much more frustrated because you see them kind of surviving in the West, and then you see these other teams make louder moves than they did. Moves that, I think fans really love talking smack more than anything else, like actually watching and participating in the day to day with their team. Like they want stars, they want young guys, and they want new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And for the Clippers, it's a lot of the same thing. Like the same coach, the same front office. Kawhi is now playing his sixth NBA season with this team, or at least he's been with the team for 6 seasons. Obviously, he missed a year with the ACL,
Mm-hmm.
which is really the start of the Clippers not being the type of contender, the playoff championship contender that they thought they would be when they brought Kawhi and PG together. But again, people looked at PG playing with the Clippers. They were never excited about Paul George playing with the Clippers. But when he leaves the Clippers and they don't sign another star back, people acted like the Clippers weren't going to compete, as if the Clippers aren't used to playing with stars. It's the most backwards thing ever. It's like you guys criticize them for not having their full team, but then get surprised when they look competent not having their full team. So the fact that they've exceeded expectations has only gone so far. I think people are again losing the plot with the Clippers. This is a bridge year. This is a year to kind of, swim along and sustain themselves as they prepare for their next era, which who knows who's going to lead that era. I think they've done well for themselves right now. They are the victims of their defense slipping. When you defend it like they did, top five level consistently through really the first 50 games or so, you can. yeah, you feel good about your ability to give yourself a chance to win games, compete. They've done that, even with the offense being pretty bad. Um, the turnovers have been awful all year, but the offense hasn't gotten worse. The defense has fallen off. That's a big reason why they lost 6 or 7.
Mm.
They've lost games that were winnable. It's not that they can't compete. It's that to win with that roster requires a heightened level of urgency, focus, and consistency, and they haven't been able to always put it all together. And even the 2 games that they've won now since the All-Star break, uh, they beat the Pistons. James Harden had his first 50-point game in 5 seasons. It was incredible to watch, but it's also like we don't need to question how unsustainable that is. And it's the same thing when they went to Chicago and won. It's like James had 3 points at halftime of that game. He wound up with, I think, 30 for the game, something like that. He hit 5 or 6 threes in third quarter. And then he hit a dagger 3-pointer to finally close the Chicago out. That's not sustainable. It's like if you need James Harden to score 25 points and a half when he doesn't even average that for a game this season,
Mm.
you need to get back to the things that got you the success. So that's the Clippers' MO for the rest of March.
So you mentioned about like bridging the gap until like, they take that next phase into whoever's going to be the face, you said, of the franchise. So like I know James Harden, his contract ends, I think at the end of, was it 2026? Um, so like is he part of the plan? Because you have two stars on the team. You got Kawhi, you got Harden, Zubac has been playing very, very well this season. What's the expectation then for like I know you said treading water. It essentially sounds like you're saying just treading water this year and just trying to stay competitive. But like
Right.
what's really the outlook moving forward then? Like what do you project for this team?
Well, that's the thing, man. I think this team this season, you know, make the playoffs. They have a new arena, man. And the when these owners get new arenas, they want people to be in those arenas for the biggest games, the biggest spotlights. They want that blimp hanging over them for game 3 or whatever of the playoffs. So that is the work that they got to do now to continue to say that, hey, we have the longest streak of consecutive winning seasons. That's what the Clippers have right now, and that's what they're working on. But everything long term, you just got to be able to keep yourself flexible and ready. Not every team has Nico Harrison willing to donate Luka Doncic to them. So,
Good
you know what I
Lord.
mean? But you want to be ready for that moment, I guess. So, that's what's important. James Harden is a great player to have in the short term. There's no such thing as long term when it comes to James Harden. He's 35 years old with the mileage that he has, like, you know, um, everything. His status as just being a star is year to year. This was his first All-Star selection in 3 seasons. So, you know, you want to, and even this year, people were like not sure which Clipper was going to get it. It was going to be James because he's the guy who, when he's at his best, he does things no one else touches.
Mhm.
That was again that 50-point game was another reminder of it. It's just that you're not going to get that very often. And when James is showing his wear, it's rough. He's not exactly a high floor player. He's a pretty low floor player at this stage of his career, but he still has ceiling, and that
Mhm.
ceiling is awesome. That ceiling does not just affect him. When we talk about ceiling, it's not, oh, I can score a bunch of points, put up a bunch of numbers. It's I can make guys around me better. If Vincent Zubac is having a career year, he's a somewhat long-term piece. You want that guy with the deal that he's on to produce the way he's able to produce and play against a variety of opponents and in a variety of lineups. Norman is interesting because Norman has killed it this year.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, Norm did not make it to and through this All-Star break healthy. He had knee soreness. They had to manage that. He gets back from that and he strains his hamstring almost immediately. Very
Mhm.
unfortunate circumstances, and we won't see him this week or next. And, they need him because it's not just that he puts points up, it's how he does it, who he can play with. The fact that he can be great in the fourth quarter. James was really good late in the games that the Clippers have won. He has been terrible in the games that the Clippers have lost for the most part over these last couple of weeks. Kawhi, same thing. Kawhi has shown flashes of a player who is consummate of the contract that he's on, but too often Kawhi is like not able to finish games with the same uh, viability that he plays to begin games or to begin halves. So the Clippers right now, man, they're still one of the oldest teams in the league. They're not as old as they were last year, but they're still one of the oldest teams in the league. They still need to get more athletic. They still need to, increase or improve their core group in terms of players who are in their 20s rather than in their 30s. And that's going to be a multi-year project, but I think this front office is dedicated to making sure that they are prepared. I think that's a credit to the front office that most people are going to give them credit for.
Hey, and but being prepared for that, especially how you traded for PG and what you gave up to get him. I'm sure everyone's looking back at like SGA now. It's like, oh, we had this guy here. Now look what he's doing over there. And so, no one ever knows who's going to become the next superstar in the league. So you can't look back and revise history in that manner. But just being ready for the next phase of whatever that may be is always good. And I just gotta rewind back because this is another thing I like. I just wonder with James Harden for the Clippers because I remember talking to you last year, and as soon
That
as
was
James
right
Harden,
before his debut.
right, and before James Harden, I guess even like before his debut, he was very heavy set on like working with Zubac and like working pick and rolls with them. And you were talking to me about that, like how they were like getting in the lab and trying to be prepared for that. Is there any part of like, especially with the mastermind that Ty Lue is, that you think about giving him even a small contract, etc., like maybe for another year or so afterwards, just because of the chemistry that they have?
Well, the thing with James is he has a player option. And James also has already done the whole I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. And he's had a good reason for getting out of every situation that he's gotten out of. So I think that everyone's on the same page. That's what's most important. I don't know if it is in the form of him picking up his player option or in the form of a, new long-term deal, or if he declines it and then, it's another 2 years, something like that. I don't think James wants to leave. Like that's not a point of drama because I cover the NBA, because I've been around James, I'm not one to say that anything is like 100%. Like things take turns, crazy turns in this league, right? So, um, but relationships are the most important thing to gauge when it comes to any of this. Does it make sense on the basketball court? Does it make sense in the locker room? Does it make sense upstairs in the boardroom? James has a great connection with everybody up and down the brain trust.
Mm,
Great relationship with ownership. Great relationship with front office. A front office that took a lot of heat for bringing him in because they already had Russell Westbrook. And whatever tension existed with that dynamic, the front office made it very clear that they preferred James over Russ.
hmm
Very, very clear. Um, Same thing with the head coach. Initially, T. Lue wanted James and Russ to start together. And when that didn't work, you see where James' minutes have always been, and you see where everybody else's minutes have been. Tyronn Lue is going to lean into James Harden. Like it's I don't think it's people understand that relationship. Like James has not always had a head coach where he mind melds with, you know.
hmm
I mean, sometimes those dudes bring each other's weaknesses out when it comes to the style of play and who's involved and just the inefficiency of certain things. But those who have a good relationship just because like they're kind of in lockstep. And that's important when you're talking about is this player going to be here, right? And so of course we didn't even get to the fact that where's he playing? He's playing in LA, you know. He wants to be home with this team. Like he's had the time to bounce around and whatnot. We see how dysfunctional Brooklyn is. We see, especially this year, the challenges in Philadelphia, that go beyond the head coach. James didn't play for Nick Nurse. But James and Daryl Morey
There's
is why
history.
James got there, and Daryl Morey is the reason James won it out. Um, and even in Houston, like he saw that Houston wasn't the place that he wanted to be anymore, and he got himself up out of there. And none of those things are happening now. Like the Clippers aren't going to be changing their head coach or their front office anytime soon. The ownership is in a great place. James has loved, and I mean beloved in that locker room. He's been an outstanding leader, but he's also been an outstanding just one of the guys on that team. A lot of things make sense. So I, I don't anticipate anything crazy happening as far as James not being around next season.
Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning for another game of the week preview. With me on the other side is my guy, Wall Murray. He covers the LA Clippers and the league at large for the Athletics. So make sure to stay tapped in and follow him on all socials to follow the great work that he does. And guess what, people? You know who else you got to follow? You know who else you got to support? Our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. So make sure to support Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. People, let me tell you something about Underdog Fantasy. I love playing it. I like to think I know a little bit more than sports than the every person, especially when it comes to our Knicks. Okay, and so what I like to do is I like to go on the app, choose between 2 to 8 players. And the more players you choose, the more money you can potentially earn. And all you got to do is just choose higher or lower on any statistical category. And if you hit on more than most, you get to win some money, especially if you choose the insured route. If you want to be a big baller and go all in and try to hit the grand slam, you could just lock in for all 8 picks. If you hit all 8 or whatever you choose, then you get even a higher earning there. And the other cool thing is you can put on your GM cap too. If you think you're a better GM, you can do some daily fantasy, compete against your friends, and see if you can beat them and get some beer money. That's what CP, JD, and myself like to do. We like to, see who's the better person to create the roster. All right. So make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. All right, well, let's get into the matchup here, man, and wrap this thing up. There is a game. As I said, we were recording this right before the Knicks tip off against the Lakers, but then immediately right afterwards, they're going to the Intuit Dome and going to compete with the Clippers. So, when I'm looking at this team, obviously the big thing that we touched on is, are they going to allow 3 pointers? And I previewed this game with my guy Trevor Land, who covers for the Lakers for Lakers Nation. And the first time the Knicks and the Lakers played, I was like, I'm very concerned if the Knicks just allow any team to walk in here on home and just put up threes. That night they shot 48% from downtown and put up 43s. And so I'm concerned with the same thing, especially when you got James Harden, you know, and just like if Kawhi's gonna be playing well, man, like these guys should just knock down shots. And in all honesty, it doesn't even matter. It could be the worst 3 point shooting team, and the Knicks will give up three. So that's gonna be my biggest concern for tomorrow's matchup. What do you think about there?
Well, here's the thing about the Clippers. They are terrible at 3-point volume.
Well, that's
Three
going to
point
be cured tomorrow. Let me tell you that.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it's one team's weakness versus another team's weakness. If the Clippers get threes, then they're not too bad at actually putting them in. It's not that they're a bad 3-point shooting team. They're more about average. And the way the Clippers get their threes is almost entirely created by their creators, right? Like they
Mm.
don't play a style of offense that helps them get threes in a way. Like there's not a lot of body movement. There's not a lot of pace. Um, you know, they're like Norman Powell and Ben Simmons are out. Ben Simmons is a great creator of threes because of his pace and passing. He's not playing. Norman Powell, he's a catch and shoot guy more than a pull up guy. Well, he's not going to be playing. So the Clippers and the Knicks are the only teams in the entire league that do not attempt 20 catch and shoot 3 pointers a game. The only two. And what that means for the Knicks is that the way they approach defense, like you just have to, you know, be present. And I think that that's going to be a big thing. It's like if James isn't cooking with his pull up, then the Knicks are probably in good shape defensively, relatively speaking. But on the other end, the Knicks not generating threes, the fact that they're dead last in catch and shoot threes. I mean, the Clippers have been really hurt by teams that get good shots, that get 3 pointers, and that's going to be a huge issue for the Knicks to deal with. The fact that like they don't generate those shots, they don't really even get a lot of pull up threes. That's not like Jalen Brunson. does a lot of great things offensively. But I don't really look at Jalen as that guy who consistently gets his own three pointers at a level of some of the other on ball creators. That's fine. He has other ways of hurting you, but like that's just the Clippers have, especially with Derrick Jones Jr. coming back, they have a variety of guys who can defend these guys. Um, you know, they they're not too worried about Cat. If Cat thinks he's got it going, the Clippers are going to have multiple guys to switch up how comfortable he can be. And Jalen, as good as Jalen is, Jalen's a small guard who's about to go up against like pretty much no rest points. Everyone who's guarding Jalen is either going to be bigger or is going to be Chris Dunn, who is a menace this year. So I'm fascinated. Like I said, this is one of the last teams that the Clippers are seeing overall, and then they're going to see them again. And these games are important. They're more important to the Clippers than they are to the Knicks. Like the Knicks are pretty safe as far as the top six, and the Clippers right now are literally representing the middle of the Western Conference. These are basically the playoffs now for the Clippers. So I styles make fights, and it's going to be a hell of a fight Friday night in Inglewood.
For sure, for sure. And another area that I'm looking at for this game is that, the Knicks love to attack. You mentioned that like this is not a team that's going to, constantly put up like a lot high volume threes. They're good in accuracy, but they're not going to be like this team that just peppers you with threes. That's because this team likes to work the paint. The Knicks right now, when it comes to scoring in the paint, they are fourth in the league, and the Clippers are 10th. So both teams top 10 when it comes to scoring inside. And then when you're looking at how they like to defend, Clippers are number three when it comes to limiting opponents' points, scoring in the paint. Zubac is obviously a key factor in that area, and the Knicks are 21st. We just got Mitchell Robinson back. He is on a minutes restriction. He hasn't played more than like I think 13 minutes so far. So I'm wondering like if he's going to play a lot at this point against the Clippers, he would certainly help in deterring anybody who wants to attack the paint. But obviously with Cat at the five, that's just kind of been the issue, man. He's not a rim deterrent. So this is, to me is just going to be another battleground where both teams will love to attack inside, but who's going to limit the opposing team from being comfortable in what they like to do? And right now, looking at the numbers, it looks like the Clippers have a slight edge there.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. I wonder if Mitchell's even going to play against the Lakers. I mean, obviously we'll know everything about Mitchell's playing status and how that Lakers game's gone by the time this episode is up. But if he can even play on his back to back, that's the thing. The how the Lakers game goes is going to directly impact how the personnel will be for the next Friday night, especially with a team that plays guys with the kind of minutes that Tibbs plays his guys. Like that stuff matters to me. So um, last year it was interesting because the Knicks they weren't playing great by the time the Clippers came to New York, but they obviously got to be the first team to see James with the Clippers, and we saw the challenges with that immediately on
Hmm.
both ends of the floor. Like I remember asking James, so you're not really ready to catch and shoot threes, huh? Playing with Russ in the starting lineup. PJ Tucker was still playing a lot. The Clippers roster is much more optimized now, so I'm interested to see. Honestly, I'm very interested to see how they play the Lakers. They were embarrassed by the Lakers in Madison Square Garden on February 1st. That was hours before they got Luka, which was I'm never going to forget February 1st, man.
Dude,
Like
how can anybody?
like the Clippers traded PJ Tucker and Mo Bamba that day, and I thought my work was done. I was up here trying to catch a bus to the airport in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was like, all right, well, did that, it's always different when you write a whole story on your phone. It's like
Wow, you had
trying
to write a
trying to
whole story on your phone? Oh,
trying
that's
trying to
crazy.
try hey try you in traffic, you on the bus. It's like bear with me, I'm mobile. Then you file it, then you get through security, you get through TSA, you get to the gate, be like, all right, let me get the airport Wi-Fi, download some videos, and see if Drew Eubanks can be a stretch option. So that day was crazy. I'm very interested to see how the Knicks adjust to the Lakers. They will be playing a much different kind of basketball team when it comes to the Clippers, just because The Clippers don't move like like the Lakers do. The Lakers, they move quite precise when they have their guys. But I will say both teams have positional size. And not that the Knicks don't, but the Knicks, it's always going to be interesting when your best player is your smallest player. The guy who's going to have the ball in his hands the most is a guy who's going to have to deal with the kind of length and physicality that both, honestly, the Lakers and the Clippers present.
For sure. And that's why for my key matchup for tomorrow's game between the Knicks and the Clippers is, you know, OG Anunoby and Kawhi Leonard. I feel like that's where the battleground is going to be met. And look,
Former
as of right now,
teammates.
yeah, we get to see the grasshopper go against the master. You know what I mean? When they were both out in Toronto, obviously OG was in the postseason for that one. He got injured, but like still, that was like the whole thing. OG, he's the next Kawhi. Even during the postseason, even I was joking. I was like, "Ooh, there's a little bit of a herky jerky game to OG's game right now. Is he just watching some Kawhi film?"
Honestly, it was probably a little too on the nose when you think about finishing a damn postseason.
Yeah. Oh man, that's
I
tough.
mean,
But that's
I
tough to
I
think
love
about.
I mean I love OG. If I may speak on him, I love OG's game, man. But I think people have to understand what kind of player he is and what he isn't. Like because he shares the floor with all of those stars, OG is going to fall back into what he does best, which is he's kind of got tunnel vision. He's not a playmaker for others. His shooting is streaky. It's nice when that thing goes in, but I would consider OG a more of a C plus B minus shooter, right, than a guy who's automatic or anything like that. And then he's bulky as hell, but sometimes he can be mechanical. So
Very.
I love the I don't think a lot of people have discussed that comparison. Like, yeah, the most important year of OG Anunoby's career as far as accomplishment is concerned, he contributed to a championship team and he got to spend a year with Kawhi. And then when
Hmm.
Kawhi left, he got to ascend from that because that was his third NBA season. So um yeah, that's going to be a great matchup. Kawhi is going to be rested and OG will not be.
Yeah, this is where it's going to be tough, and I just see the report right now. Both Norman Powell and Ben Simmons are out for tomorrow's matchup. Kawhi Leonard is not listed, so he is available for tomorrow. Um, and look, OG, knock on wood, has been very healthy this season. That's going to be my key matchup just because, of course, we know it's good. The Rock's going to be in James Harden's hand. We know it's going to be in Brunson's hand. We know those guys are going to be creating for everybody else as well as creating their own shot. But to me, it's really can OG, because as you mentioned, Kawhi has shown that, oh, this is why you give him the contract that you do because he is capable of doing this on some nights. And so for me, it's going to be that battle between those two wings to see, all right, can we, limit Kawhi and not allow him to go off? Because if he starts getting going, then it's going to be really tough, especially with James Harden and Kawhi. So, OG, we know he's a solid defender, very good in isolation. You mentioned his offense. It is, not the prettiest thing, when he tries to create for himself. He does have nights where you're like, oh, okay, you got it going. Well, man, not even a little man, right? He's a huge dude, but like he'll throw the shoulder, create some separation, do a little step back from here from time to time, knock down some threes when he's wide open. But it's not like he's not the superstar caliber like Jalen Brunson or even what Kawhi is. So that's my key matchup for tomorrow. What do you think about that matchup for tomorrow's game? How do you think that plays out?
You saying what was the matchup again?
It's Kawhi and OG.
Coach, yeah, yeah, my main thing there is Kawhi trying to get to his spots. I think OG's played Kawhi enough and has been familiar enough with him to understand what he wants to do. The other end is what's going to be tricky. It's like OG making shots is going to be huge. Like OG, because of who he plays with, is not going to be on the top of the scouting report. That actually might mean that Kawhi takes OG because Kawhi doesn't start games on the best players
Mm,
anymore. Like when Kawhi's really feeling up to it, like he'll switch out on the top matchups and everything. But this Clippers team is built so that other guys take on those assignments.
mm.
I mean, OG touches the ball fewer times than anyone else in that starting lineup, and that is something to look at. Like I'm not sure if they'll even. It's going to be interesting to see how the Clippers approach guarding the Knicks specifically. You know that Zoo's going to be on Towns, and Towns being a shooting big makes things a little tough. But if the Clippers get bored with that, then they might mess around and they might treat Towns like they normally do, which is with they'll say, "Hey, Karl Anthony Towns is dangerous if he got the jump shot going. We want him in the post." They might mess around and put someone like James Harden on him. I'm not even kidding. They might
Mhm.
say, "What are you going to do? You're going to post James? You're going to move?" Like they might do that to actually give James a break. You know, James is
Mm.
much better off when he doesn't have like James operates like a power forward defensively sometimes. You
Mm.
know, you don't want him rim protecting, but you absolutely are going to ask him to take on the bulkier front court player that Zoo doesn't take on. They might say, Zoo, you have Josh Hart. Why? Because Josh Hart is going to be encouraged to try and score. And really, where Josh Hart is most effective is when he's got his head full of steam, getting downhill and getting right to the rim. Well, if you put your center on him, treat Josh Hart like an interior option only, you'll probably be like, yeah, we'll take a Josh Hart jump shot over everybody else. That hurts you if Josh Hart is having a good day, but you play percentages and you probably are thinking that's how you want to match up. You're probably going to put Chris Dunn on Jalen Brunson. But if you start Chris Dunn and Derrick Jones Jr., man, it'll be interesting because you can switch both of those guys
Mm.
on and off. So that's everybody. I didn't even get to Kawhi, So OG's job is to take advantage of whoever is guarding him. But the Clippers are going to have everybody else on that scouting report higher than OG probably.
For sure. The matchups tomorrow are definitely going to be interesting. All right, well, two more questions and I'm going to get you out of here. Let's go through X factors. Who's your X factor for the Clippers tomorrow?
X factor for the Clippers is Bogdan Bogdanovic. He's something that we haven't even come close to touching on in this particular episode. And Bogey is going through it. He hasn't had a great year. He got traded from a team that he was on for a while. His bad moments have been pretty low, but when the Clippers have won with him, he's contributed significantly. And he's not your typical, oh, just make some shots guy. He's a guy who can handle the basketball, who can get to his pull up. He can make the right play as a passer, as a guy who can be somewhat more than a secondary playmaker. So um, he's also going to be a guy that the Knicks probably want to, attack. They want to find Bogey defensively and challenge him on that end of the floor. That is the definition of an X factor. A guy who is as streaky as a shooter as he is, a guy who is trying to figure out things, and he's now rounding into, completing his first month as a Clipper, and a guy who, has positional size, but again, when you think about scouting reports, you're like, who are the players that if you are being defended on the ball at the point of attack, who are we trying to exploit? So that it's gonna a lot of the success for the Clippers is probably going to come down to how Bogey is playing and how he's used.
Okay, so you're gonna go with Bogey. I'm gonna go with Mikal Bridges. I could go with Josh Hart because he's been in a little bit of a slump. He, started off the season shooting 37.5% from downtown on 3 to 4 attempts for threes. He's quieted down a bit, but I feel like part of me feels like he's gonna have a strong game against the Lakers. So I feel like he'll bounce back and be that energy guy that we're so accustomed to seeing. It's Mikal Bridges for me, man. He's had a good moment in Memphis, where he caused the 8 second violation to prevent Ja from getting across half court and then helps the Knicks get that win. And then, he's just kind of been quiet when it comes to offensive production and where you need him most, and defensively when he's guarding the top perimeter player. And in this matchup, I expect him to probably get James Harden to start off with, uh, unless they want to go with Josh Hart at some point. But for me, it's going to be Bridges. He's going to be tasked with being that other guy offensively, especially if they're able to take Karl Anthony Towns a little bit out of his game. I'm expecting him just to get downhill, knock down some mid range, hopefully get to the free throw line because this man was once averaging 6 free throw attempts and now is barely averaging 1. It's just disgusting. Nasty
Hey
work
man,
out here.
you gotta stay on the floor somehow.
Hey man, got to do something. And it's I guess it's by not getting hit.
By not,
So
yeah, it's like, hey, that consecutive game streak doesn't pay itself. There's a
yeah,
tax to
not
it.
not to the most physical player. We know that for a fact.
Yep.
But yeah, so I'm looking for Mikal Bridges to have a bounce back game against the Clippers. All right, so you're gonna go with Bogey. I'm going with Mikal Bridges. Last question I got for you, and you can get out of here, Law. What's the West? How's the West shakeout, man? You cover the league at large. How's the West shakeout?
I mean, what kind of shaking are we doing here?
Hey man, who's gonna be in who's gonna be 1 through 8? Who's gonna be in the playoffs?
Wow, 1 through 8 in the playoffs. Um, well, I can take the Thunder being the one to the bank, so we can do that uh for sure. But after that, it's a mess. It's a hot mess. I mean, the Lakers, I feel like they're going to wind up being the two.
Mm,
Um, like they've got it now. They're playing great, and like they look like they're just going to be a team that, as long as they don't even need all their guys. That's the interesting thing about it. They've won without Luka. They've won without LeBron. You know, Austin Reeves just had his first injury in a very long time. They were fine without Austin. This is a team that, they can win games as long as they have one on-ball creator. Um, they, to me, are the biggest threat. Like, I will pick Oklahoma City today to make it out of the West, but we saw the playoffs last year. The Thunder supporting cast better make threes,
mm,
or they're going to fall under the same fate if they face the Lakers as they did when the Thunder faced the Mavericks in the semifinals in the West last year. But I don't want to talk about playoff results just yet. The Nuggets are safe. The Grizzlies are a team that I don't need to order 1 through 8. We just want 8 teams.
yeah, it's 18.
I think the Grizzlies have enough of a cushion that they will make the playoffs, but it's about to get dicey. They are not playing well, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is out. Um, I could see him missing the rest of March.
Wow.
That's how serious that ankle injury is. So that's really unfortunate because he's been a rock for them. I think he's been their best player. Absolutely deserved his All-Star um, selection. I thought he was I would have said a front runner for Defensive Player of the Year when Wemby got hurt. I probably would have even liked him better than Wemby, considering how well Memphis is playing compared to San
Mm,
Antonio. But that's out the window. Jaren's going to miss too many games, and Memphis looks like a team that I think is extremely vulnerable. Houston, they're probably going to be safe too, but they're probably a little vulnerable as well. It'll be really interesting if Memphis and Houston wind up facing each other, but Golden State's playing too well, and their schedule is super soft compared to some
mhm.
other teams. They're going to be safe. I think that's your top six. You're
Okay.
playing tournament teams. I don't care about Dallas or Phoenix. Phoenix, they're too far gone, even with that comeback over the Clippers. Dallas, I think Jason Kidd is a good coach. They've lost too much personnel wise, and the vibes are terrible.
For
You
sure.
know, so if they're a playing tournament team, I think they're a quick out. It's going to come down to the Kings, Clippers, and Timberwolves, 3 teams for 2 spots. I believe the Clippers get there, and I believe Minnesota has enough guys and the best player to lock it down. Um, I'm going to say that the Kings they barely miss out.
All right. There you have it. So just to recap for everybody out there, Wall's got OKC, Lakers, Nuggets, Grizzlies, Rockets, Warriors, Timberwolves, and Clippers being the 8. Those are going to be your 8 teams in the playoffs. Appreciate you for coming through as always. Well, please let the listeners know where they can find you, and if you got any work up and coming, we should be on the lookout for.
Yeah, as always, shout out to the Athletic, shout out to my editors, shout out to all the writers, reporters, everybody doing the work that supports us. Shout out to the fans and the readers. Shout out to you, Alex. And I'm on social. Y'all can find me.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate all for you for coming through as always. Make sure to give him a follow. Make sure to check out his work. He does a phenomenal job covering the Clippers and the league at large. So make sure to give him a follow. Subscribe to The Athletic, too. Make sure to go check out his work, man. He does phenomenal work. They got so many great writers over there. And, salute to Knicks Nation and the franchise channel members for tuning in once again. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Make sure to support our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code KFTV to get to $1,000 in instant bonus cash and a free pick. And remember, if you can't catch these shows live or recorded on YouTube, which you can, you just got to go back into the archives. You can always follow us on any audio listening platform, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, you name it. We're all over the place, so you can tap in there. Make sure to follow our newsletter to get all other written coverage as well. We got a bunch of great writers. We'll catch you for play-by-play and post-game as always. All right, everyone, we out.